Arthur, the detective of disquieting shadows, stood at the precipice of the rural landscape of Fort Collins, Colorado. His weathered features, etched deeply by years of relentless inquiries and unsolvable mysteries, reflected the cool afternoon light. His gaze was as solid and unyielding as the rocky mountains that cradled the town. The verdant landscape, dotted with quaint farmhouses and charming downtown streets, held an alluring tranquility, yet it was here in the midst of serenity where an inscrutable enigma unfolded. Arthur had been called to investigate an uncanny series of thefts, not from the town's residents, but from its most silent citizens, those who resided in the local graveyard. His well-worn leather boots crunched the gravel as he entered the cemetery, its archaic wrought iron gate creaking a somber melody that echoed off the moss-covered headstones. The graveyard caretaker, a frail, weather-beaten man named Earl, found Arthur amongst the solemn sea of stone. "It's like the devil himself has taken a liking to us," he murmured, eyes darting nervously among the headstones. "We can't explain it, detective. It's like these thieves are invisible." Arthur looked at Earl. "Sometimes the invisible is merely the unobserved," he said, his voice as steady as the sturdy oaks surrounding them. His words were drawn from the silent well of his past, filled with unseen horrors and brutal memories. His history of trauma hadn't weakened him, but rather solidified his resolve. He began his investigation, meticulously examining each desecrated grave. The sun's journey toward the horizon cast lengthening shadows, turning the cemetery into a landscape of haunting contrasts. Amid the vanishing daylight and the silent rustling of leaves, Arthur felt a prickle of familiarity, the slow gnaw of dread, the chilling hint of an enigma that belied its superficial facade. Before leaving, he paused, looking over the graveyard one last time. His gaze was met by the cold, indifferent eyes of the stone angels dotting the graveyard, their stony countenance a mirror of his own. Yet beneath his hardened exterior, there stirred a sense of duty, an inner flame fueled by his guiding principle, the act of returning a favor. As the Colorado dusk pulled its velvet curtain over the day, the detective felt an unvoiced apprehension creeping into his thoughts. With his loyal dedication to justice, he knew he would return at dawn, as steadfast as the rising sun, ready to descend further into the mystery that had turned the peaceful town into a stage for uncanny acts. As dawn lifted the veil of night, Arthur returned to the solemn cemetery, its tranquility now tainted with an inexplicable dread. The morning sun, usually a harbinger of new beginnings, seemed to unveil unsettling details, pushing Arthur further into the labyrinth of his investigation. Under the nascent sunlight, he noticed peculiar patterns, traces of an unseen narrative woven through the thefts. Graves stripped of their offerings weren't chosen at random. The violated tombs bore ornate symbols and inscriptions hinting at ancient lore, while their modest, humble neighbors remained untouched. The enigma was growing, stretching its serpentine shadow across his methodical reasoning. Sheriff Ramirez, the local law enforcer, joined him amidst the sea of stone and silence. His jovial demeanor was a stark contrast to the detective's stoic determination. "Don't understand why they're skipping plain graves and going for these, Arthur," he said, scratching his graying hair. "After all, a gold watch is a gold watch, ain't it?" Arthur's gaze was lingering over an intricately engraved headstone as he replied in a low rumble. "This isn't about what can be pawned off, Ramirez. It's about the symbolism, the purpose beyond our understanding." The detective's words hung in the air, a poignant declaration of the terror that lay beneath the surface of this quiet town. Arthur could see the growing concern in Ramirez's eyes, an echo of his own disquiet. The case was slowly uncoiling, revealing a complexity that went beyond the realm of simple thievery. His afternoons were spent researching the symbols and relics taken from the graves. The town's quaint library became his sanctuary, the dusty shelves of antiquated books his companions. Hunched over texts brimming with forgotten folklore and ancient cosmology, he felt an undercurrent of fear lapping at the edge of his consciousness, a gnawing sense of something colossal, ominous, and inevitably terrifying. By nightfall, he returned to his lodgings, a modest room that overlooked the Rockies. Despite the majestic vista, his thoughts remained entrenched in the depths of the Fort Collins mystery. His dreams were haunted by serpentine figures, cosmic entities weaving in and out of the starlit expanse, their presence both enchanting and horrifying. Each day bled into the next, with Arthur persistently pushing against the monstrous unknown, driven by an undying sense of loyalty and a personal promise to return a favor. As the days rolled into weeks, the charm of Fort Collins began to twist into something more sinister under the weight of unsolved thefts. Arthur's relentless pursuit of truth led him deeper into the heart of the enigma, every path turning, twisting like the serpentine figures of his dreams. His determination, carved from the bedrock of past traumas and bolstered by an unyielding sense of loyalty, never waned. Under the pale moonlight, he found himself yet again in the chilling embrace of the graveyard. An unseasonable chill hung in the air, making the silent tombstones seem to shimmer ethereally. He felt a foreboding pull, an inexplicable instinct guiding him towards an inconspicuous grave marked with an ancient symbol he recognized from his research. And then, before his disbelieving eyes, the air above the grave began to shimmer, vibrating with an unseen energy. From the wavering ether, a figure materialized, its form undulating, iridescent scales glistening under the spectral glow of the moon. An entity from a realm beyond his comprehension, a cosmic serpent that birthed his darkest fears into reality. His first instinct was to run, to flee from the incomprehensible terror unfolding before him. But his feet were rooted to the ground, eyes locked onto the entity with a mix of horror and fascination. "This can't be," he found himself whispering into the frigid night. "This can't be real." Yet the alien entity was undeniably there, as real as the cold, hard tombstones that bore silent witness to this otherworldly spectacle. Arthur watched, paralyzed, as the entity seemed to bend reality to its will, effortlessly extracting a relic from the unbroken soil. An act of cosmic desecration conducted with terrifying precision and unfamiliarity. He returned to his lodgings in a state of numbed shock. Every fiber of his being rejected the reality of what he'd witnessed. His worldview, so firmly grounded in logic, intangible evidence, was now shattered and reformed around an incomprehensible cosmic truth. In the heart of the night, as Fort Collins slept, he sat alone, grappling with the revelation. Fear, wonder, and confusion swirled within him like a tempest. But beneath it all, an undercurrent of determination ran steady. He was a detective, a seeker of truth. Even if the truth was beyond human comprehension, he wouldn't shy away. The people of Fort Collins were unknowingly living on the cusp of a cosmic horror, and it was his duty to protect them, even at the cost of his sanity. His resolve solidified, he prepared for the coming storm. The spectral night seemed to whisper in agreement, ushering him into the chilling embrace of a world on the brink of madness. In the bleak light of the ensuing days, Arthur found himself standing at the precipice of sanity. The line between the mundane world and the chilling cosmos had been blurred by the alien entity's revelation. The familiar confines of Fort Collins now echoed with a cosmic dread, a monstrous truth that lurked in the silence. His interactions with the townsfolk took on a surreal quality. The jovial Sheriff Ramirez, the earnest librarian Miss Finch, the apprehensive grave caretaker Earl, they all walked beneath the shadow of an incomprehensible cosmic horror, oblivious of the true nature of their reality. Their mundane worries and simple pleasures seemed increasingly distant to Arthur, their laughter and chatter becoming an alien language that he could barely comprehend. His days were spent in a state of heightened paranoia, examining every shadow, every rustle of the wind for signs of the entity. Nights were spent in fevered research, his sleep haunted by eldritch dreams that seemed to echo the incomprehensible motives of the alien creature. And then there were the visitations. The entity appeared before him at the graveyard, its alien form bending the reality around it. It communicated in a way that transcended speech, sending waves of impressions and emotions that seeped into his mind like ink and water. He was shown glimpses of cosmic wonders and terrors, vistas of alien landscapes, ancient galaxies swirling in an endless dance of creation and destruction. The entity's motives remained as inscrutable as ever, its actions bearing the imprint of a logic that was far removed from human comprehension. He found himself withdrawing, becoming an observer of the world he once participated in. The strain of holding the colossal reality of the cosmos within his human mind began to take its toll. His once robust frame grew gaunt, eyes turning hollow with the terrifying knowledge they held. Yet, amidst the descent into madness, Arthur's tenacity remained unwavering. His loyalty to Fort Collins, to the duty he had pledged himself to, was a beacon in the fog of insanity that was closing in. His past trauma, the pain and fear he had survived, now served as a grim reminder of his ability to endure the unimaginable. He formulated a plan to confront the entity, his last bid at preserving the peaceful ignorance of the townsfolk. His mind, teetering on the brink of sanity, echoed with a singular thought: he must end the cosmic desecration. Arthur stood on the threshold of the graveyard, its spectral silence seeming to echo his heartbeat. His plan, as vague and unorthodox as it was, rested on a gamble. He carried with him a relic, an ancient artifact he'd sourced from the library's hidden archives. Its inscription was akin to those stolen. Its significance, he hoped, enough to pique the entity's attention. The moon cast a pallid light over the graveyard, turning the headstones into silent specters. The entity arrived, its undulating form distorting the air around it. Arthur felt a pulse of dread ripple through the cosmos, a terrifying herald of the entity's presence. His fear was tempered with a resolve born from his loyalty to the townsfolk and a need to fulfill his duty. He presented the relic to the entity as an offer, a bait, and a plea. The entity paused, an incomprehensible notion in a creature not bound by human concepts of time or space. It turned its focus to the relic, the air around them seeming to vibrate with alien intrigue. Then, with an unspoken understanding, the entity reached out, its form shifting, a spectacle of horror and wonder that forced Arthur to confront his insignificance in the grand scheme of the cosmos. Yet, as the entity touched the relic, a sudden burst of energy radiated, casting an ethereal glow that painted the graveyard in hues of the unknown. The following moments were a blurred dance of reality and terror. He felt himself thrust into an abstract existence, caught in a torrent of cosmic energy. He saw the entity recoil, its form shimmering, convulsing in the unearthly glow of the relic. With a rush of adrenaline, he turned and ran, his flight seeming to distort the reality around him. Each step he took away from the entity was a step back towards his humanity, a desperate retreat from the brink of madness. He didn't stop running until he reached the comforting lights of Fort Collins, the entity's presence fading into a dreadful memory. Arthur was changed, the burden of cosmic knowledge carved into his psyche, a permanent scar on his reality. But the alien desecration had ceased. The cosmic terror remained confined within the spectral silence of the graveyard. In the aftermath, he was a shell of his former self, his brave exterior now housing an echoing void filled with alien nightmares. But amidst the horrors, there was an eerie sense of satisfaction. He had returned the favor and had shielded the innocent town from a cosmic dread they could never comprehend. As Fort Collins returned to its peaceful rhythm, its guardian bore his scars in silence, forever standing between the quaint town and the cosmic horrors that lurked beyond their reality. His escape was but a temporary reprieve, a terrifying interlude before the cosmic horrors would beckon again, calling out to him from the depths of the abyss. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like it and subscribe to our channel, where you can find more similar stories, and click on the bell icon to never miss one. There is plenty more cosmic horror to come from the Eldritch Tales Factory. Stay tuned, and until next time.